Welcome to Fiji Village Trade Talk. I am Vijay Narayan, and today we have a recorded show out here at the Water Authority of Fiji's Tamavua water treatment plant, and we'd like to thank WEF CEO Dr. Amit Chanan for availing himself and to take us on a show and tell tour as well on how the water infrastructure is coping as far as our population is concerned. What are some of the limitations? What are some of the challenges? The questions that you've sent to me, I'll be also asking those questions right here on Fiji Village Trade Talk. So stay with us. And Dr. Chanan, thank you very much for inviting us on this tour that we're eagerly looking forward to on behalf of our viewers as well.
You're welcome.
Now, we are here at Tamavua water treatment plant. If you can give us an insight on what this water treatment plant does.
So Tamavua treatment plant supplies to most of the sort of elevated areas of Suva, and that's if you think about the Princess Road, the areas along from Tamavua village, Dukanu Suva, Dolu Suva, as well as Upper Rag. So all the elevated areas of Suva are supplied from this treatment plant. Vijay, a couple of years ago, I think we met on this very show. We talked about the challenges that we had in Suva and Nasori system. Back then, our challenge was that Suva and Nasori was using about 6 million liters a day more than what we could produce. The good news for people of Suva and Nasori is that that's no longer the case. We have more production capacity in Suva and Nasori than the demand. The Viria treatment plant, which is producing 40 million liters a day, is now online. And as a result, we have the surplus capacity in terms of demand and supply. So what we have done over this period is brought Viria online. So all the areas east of River, Nasori Airport, all the way to River Delta, are now getting water from Viria treatment plant. And, you might have heard in the news on Friday, we had a session in River Delta. We're looking at even extending pipelines to some of these smaller villages where we never had water supply before. So that's already happening in that part. We are also able to build resilience in the system by able to supply areas from Vaila as well as Viria. So we can offset each other. If there's a production issue in one, the other plant can offset. And that security or resilience has already been built all the way from sort of Nasori to Suva port along the coast. That's already in place now. The missing link in the Suva Nasori system now is this Tamavua plant. Right now, we don't have the ability to back up this plant with Viria water. There is, in fact, a project in the pipeline. Pardon the pun. It is a pipeline project, which is about bringing water from Savani to Doloi Suva through a new pipeline and a pump station. So once that's in place, we will have the ability to then back up Tamavua plant as well. And then we'll not have the frequent issues that we face in this part of water supply system, particularly, since Easter, as your listeners would recall. We've actually had a series of events. We did not have just one event. We had a landslip around Easter long weekend. Then we had a third-party contractor damaging one of our pipes. Then we had a 1 week of really heavy rain, and that just closely followed each other. And when that happened, it all felt like just one incident that we've just completely lost the plot. But we were fighting multiple incidents within that span of period. And once the system goes down, it takes a while to recover. So what it felt like almost a month without water, it was because there were series of incidents that were happening here. And I do apologize to the people who are being serviced from this water treatment plant for the disruption they experience. But our challenge is that right now, because of that missing link from Viria, we do have a gap. And sometimes when you think about Tamavua, you almost feel like there's a cruel joke that someone played by creating Water Authority, that the decisions of the rest of bureaucracy come to fruition with Water Authority. If you think about people living along Princess Road. And I get these calls all the time. People say, I've been living here 20 years, it never used to happen. And they're right, it never used to happen 20 years ago. But you look at, all you have to do is just go on Google Earth and look at the area from about Tamavua village to Dole Suva, either side of Princess Road, and see the development. From water supply point of view, the worst place to increase urban density is up the hill. And we've picked an area 170 meters above sea level, and we are required to provide water to these people who, quite rightly, they have legitimately bought houses and they are expecting water to be delivered, and they're very angry, and rightly so, with us not being able to deliver the water. But think this through in terms of, and you don't have to answer this question, Vijay, but if planners had come to Water Authority and asked, what do you think if we increase the density, are you okay? Do you think they would have asked us, and do you think we would have said yes? That is something that is partly what's contributing to Tamavua system. There's been high density of development that has happened from about, top of, from pretty much from Tamavua village to Dole Suva, Sekoda, Upper Khalsa. We need, to cater to that, we needed to boost our pumping supplies, we needed to increase our pipelines. Those conversations as part of the planning did not happen. But we are playing a catch-up now, and community is rightly angry with us. I'll give you one more example before you ask in the next question. On the other side, I get a lot of angry phone calls about when we say there's turbidity in Waimanu River. They say, why can't you fix it? Another question. When you look at Waimanu River and you look back all the reports that have ever been done about Waimanu River, State of Environment Report of Fiji in 2013, it flags serious concerns about gravel and sand extraction from Waimanu River. Now, don't have to answer it, but do you think Water Authority would have said, yes, go ahead and dredge all the sand if we were given an opportunity to contribute or ask that question? So we are the only capital city that I know of that has its major water intake structure downstream of sand and gravel extraction. And that lease has just recently been renewed. So we then are often faced with, and every time it rains, that same sand and gravel ends up in our pumping stations. It impacts on our ability to pump. So again, it's a decision that's outside our control that we have to deal with on a daily basis. Notwithstanding that, we are an organization that dives deep in the water intake structures at 2 o'clock in the morning, so when you wake up there's water there. We stand in the rain on the long weekends to make sure that there is water available to you. So we came up with an alternate solution of how we can continue to supply. And that alternate solution is to get a pipeline from Savani to Dole Suva. Now that project is now in the pipeline for about 5 months. One landowner, all it takes to stop any project. It takes a long time to then negotiate and go through the process of approvals. In the last 2 years, Water Authority it costed the taxpayers of Fiji about $5 million on land-related delays on our projects. So the project, Savani to Dole Suva, is right now in the hands of landowners. We need to locate a pump station somewhere along the way because we have to lift the water up 170 meters, and we can't do that without a pumping station. So until that land issue is resolved, we can't really get on with construction. So there are examples like that where it almost is challenging. You have to play this chess almost on a daily basis to make sure that the water supply is continued.
Thank you very much for that in-depth answer. I'll pick on some issues from there. Number one, in relation to development plans. We are stuck here now because of issues that have been maybe not managed well enough in terms of development plans. Approvals have been given, population has increased at the highest levels of the capital city, and you are expected to supply water. So based on that, is funding and planning an issue which was not done prior to when you came in?
Look, I think we do now have a Water Sector 2050 strategy. It is a very clear document that articulates where we need to go from here. Prime Minister in his forward in that strategy, has promised the people of Fiji that this is what we will do to improve the water and sanitation situation. Our own line minister, Honorable Ro Felipe Tuisaba, when he presented the strategy into the Parliament, reaffirmed government's commitment to the strategy. And I was also encouraged to hear from the opposition spokesperson, our previous water minister, Honorable John Eusamate, who was also positive about the strategy. So I think first time in our history, we have a document that clearly articulates what needs to be done, and we have bipartisan support. So right now, we are as good as we could ever be in terms of fixing this challenge.
My issue, why I ask you that question, with the Viria treatment plant online and being a backup for Waila, now with Tamavua, your worst concern, Tamavua, because it's at a heightened level. How long will people have to continue to suffer before they see light at the end of the tunnel?
So the light at the end of the tunnel is that Savani to Dola Suva pipeline. The project's already been funded. The concept's been designed. We are just finalizing the land issues. And yes, it can be frustrating, and I know I have gone and spoken to district advisory councillors in Sakoda. There are a number of people, my own close friends who are disappointed in me for not being able to deliver on that promise. I see that on their faces. So we are working on that issue. Once the land issue is resolved, we should be able to construct that very quickly. So we are working with Department of Lands to get that resolution.
What's your timeline?
Look, the construction timeline takes about 8 to 10 months. It's the resolution of the land issue that can be anybody's guess. Right now, we're thinking that hopefully in the next 6 months, we should be able to resolve that. We are working with the Department of Lands to find some speedy resolution.
So your government is working with you to quickly
Absolutely.
Get all the land issues clarified?
Definitely.
Just in relation to this dredging and gravel and sand extraction, a major concern there in relation to environmental factors, and this is because you're producing about 70 million liters of water a day here.
Yes.
And then you have issues which are out of your control, again in terms of planning, where you are not being, I believe you're not being consulted in relation to these extractions. How concerning is that?
It is concerning not just for Water Authority, but should be concerning for everybody in Fiji. It is a challenge, no doubts about it, and we do need to do better with our environmental regulations with regards to this. Anybody who has any credible knowledge on river, on water quality, if you look at SPC reports, if you look at old, state of environment reports, there's enough literature asking to look at it seriously and raising alarm about it. From our point of view, I think what the community expects is somehow engineering can solve everything, and unfortunately that's not the case. By creating a problem, we are making that challenge a lot worse. So we do need to think about our existing legislation and how we can enforce them better.
Because the issue here is when you get now, the joke is, if you get more heavy rain,
I know,
you'll get less water in your taps.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, that is ironic, and at the same time, it's the result of our catchment practices, right? So yes, I do get those abusive phone calls quite regularly to say that, what's your problem now? It's raining outside. Can you not supply water? And it's exactly that issue where when you have a riverbed disturbed, any high intensity rainfall will actually, lift those sediments, and it brings straight into our intake structures. And our pumping capacity goes down as a result. Our treatment capacity down here goes down as a result. So these filter beds that you see there, normally we have to backwash them once in every 48 hours. But on the 4th and 5th of May, when we had high intensity rainfall, we had to backwash them every 6 hours because there was so much silt coming in. So yes, it seems ironic, but unfortunately that is the tragedy of current Waimanu River situation. We can improve the engineering here, no doubts, and we will. But to do that, we do need to have the backup from, Viria reaching this system. Only then can we have any engineering intervention here, because system is so precariously balanced right now, we really can't take any of the component offline right now. So we do have plans in terms of changing our, improving our intake structure, adding another clarifier. But all those works can only be done once we've done the Savani to Dolu Suva pipeline, so we have a backup.
My final question before we go to the break. The Wainmanu River, the concerns that you raised about extraction, are you having those discussions with those responsible in government?
Look, I volunteered to be part of EIA review committees, and when Department of Environment invites me for those, I certainly contribute. In terms of the process, I think it's probably a question for Department of Environment and others responsible. But I certainly, every opportunity I get, I do raise that as a serious issue, and it has been a serious issue for quite some time.
And you've spoken to the Department of Environment?
On multiple occasions, not specifically of Waimanu, but where I have been part of the EIA review committees for sand and gravel extraction, I have contributed.
What has been the response?
I think the other areas, they have, when I was on EIA committees, they have taken comments on board. On this case, these decisions were made much earlier than at least my time here, and there hasn't been any recent conversation that the department had with us with regards to these extraction licenses.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Oh my gosh! Oh, what's in the box?
You're probably wondering, what's in the box? Well, if you must know, it's actually me. Wait. Before you call the police, I'm actually an app. The all-new Fiji Village app. Here's an update. See what I did there? I gave you an update. What's new? Well, for starters, I look different. My new layout also comes with stories, if you're looking for something short and sweet. I will bring you the latest news on the dot so you stay updated. You're welcome. You don't have to go anywhere for content because I bring the content to you. Not only can you listen to your favorite radio station, you can now watch online video content. Your #1 news website just got better with an app. Download and get updated now.
Bigger, bolder, and better than ever.
Fiji Showcase 2024, 5th to 13th July at the Vodafone Arena, Suva.
Get ready
To be swept up in a whirlwind of international acts, mouth-watering cuisine, and the best shopping deals of the year.
Oh, the shopping. There's nothing like having everything under one roof.
Fiji Showcase 2024, 5th to 13th July.
Save the date. 9 days of pure delight await. Fiji Showcase 2024, 5th to 13th July at the Vodafone Arena, Suva.
See you there.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest today is the Water Authority of Fiji CEO, Dr. Amit Chanan. Dr. Chanan, we're now at one of the clarifiers of WEF here at the Tamavua water treatment plant. How important is this piece of infrastructure for Water Authority?
Look, it is very, very critical. Noting that Tamavua provides about 40% of Suva's water supply, so each one of them is actually 20% of Suva's water supply. So it is really important treatment process, particularly given that the biggest process that we do in terms of treating is addressing the salinity, the turbidity challenge. So clarifiers are really important for treating turbid water.
Turbidity is the buzzword for many people in this part of the country because they know it's connected to no water. You've talked about extractions playing a huge role. We know that bed farming practices contribute to that as well up in the highlands. But your engineering solutions, you said you're trying different engineering solutions, but you definitely won't get a perfect solution through that?
Look, the engineering can certainly assist with the treatment process. The first thing we need to understand is with this system, We cannot have a heavy-duty engineering solution until we have the backup from Virya in place, because we can't afford to take any component offline right now. So that pipeline from Savani to Dole Suva is the first step before we have heavy engineering solution. So what we're doing in the meantime is looking at things like litter booms for our Savura offtake, where the leaf litter and other organic litter ends up blocking our structure. So that's a cheaper and quicker implementation. But more complex side of things that we need to do here are building another clarifier that'll add to the treatment capacity. We'll also need to look at some filtration mechanism in terms of our intake at Savura. We'll build a new pumping station and filtration at Savura. All those are part and parcel of our Water Sector 2050 strategy, and they are all critical components of what we need to do to make sure that this system that has already served 50 plus years have another 100 years to go.
So, just a question. This was built around the 1960s, before Fiji's independence. Our population has boomed.
Yes.
What was the capacity at the time when the water treatment plant was built, based on population, and what is it now?
So the design capacity of this plant is 60 million liters a day. But we have been consistently running it at about 75 million liters a day. And that is another reason why, the turbidity events actually end up blocking our filtration, because we are running this plant very hard.
So, what does it mean for development plans if people continue in the path of furthering development and the water infrastructure is not able to keep up?
I think it's development is an important part of economic cycle, and we do need to encourage development. And I don't want your listeners to think Water Authority is somehow stopping development. What we do need to do is better urban planning, where just before an urban planner decides to change the color of an area to say it'll be new residential, a conversation need to be had with Water Authority to say, are you able to get water to this location? Are you able to get wastewater from here? And those conversations, I think we have missed in the past. And things are improving, and we are encouraging more conversation with each other. This tractor strategy is a great example where we got everybody in the room to talk about what are the challenges, so what it is a collective outlook. So those are the conversations that were really critical, and I think strategy has now provided that blueprint to us.
Our last show, we talked about the high level of leakage. Now, you're already producing over and above on a daily basis. Capacity is 60 million liters of water a day. You're producing close to 75 million liters, but you're losing about 47% of that in the ground.
Yes, that is the unfortunate truth right now. The Ernest Hemingway has a work called "The Sun Also Rises," and in that book there is a famous quote where one character asks about how did you go broke, and the answer was in two different ways: slowly in the beginning and all of a sudden in the end. That is exactly how the pipes deteriorate: slowly in the beginning and all of a sudden in the end. So we've had these pipes in the ground for 50 plus years. They deteriorated slowly in the beginning, and now we're getting into that cycle where all of a sudden phase going to start, and that's what we're seeing with 47% leakage. So an appeal in this water sector strategy is to make sure that 50% of all our capital investment goes in renewing our assets. So what we're doing in Suva and Nasori right now is, with the assistance from Asian Development Bank, we are right now in the final stages of a tender for water loss reduction. And what that'll do is it'll bring in the world's best practice in identifying leaks and fixing leaks. Because if you can imagine, Vijay, that we've got so many pipes underground and they're all aging, we can't dig them all up at the same time. We'll have an absolute, nightmare on the roads.
On top of what you have already.
Exactly. So that's why we've decided to go down with a performance-based contract, looking at the best practice globally, and we are very close to finalizing that tender. And our aim is that by August we should have someone on board who will work hand in hand with our operations team to use the best technology in identifying leaks and fixing those leaks. So 47% is the leakage at the moment. If we can even cover half that, we will not have any gap in water supply for years to come, and that's what I aim.
The pipes.
Indeed.
I believe in one thing, controlling what you can control. Definitely some of these issues we're talking about, things are out of your control if other agencies in the country do not see and say, okay, this is an issue. Are we at that point now? I know there's National Development Plan consultations underway. There's a push to have more EIAs before any development. Are we at that place now where we're looking for permanent solutions rather than band-aid solutions?
Well, I sincerely hope so, and I think every conversation I've been having with my counterparts in other government departments is all about working together and understanding that the planning needs to be integrated. We can't build a new hotel without thinking where the water will come from. You can't build a new urban development without thinking where the wastewater will go to. And those conversations are really critical. And I think the penny has dropped in the minds of many, and we are getting maturity in that sense, definitely.
Frustration, no doubt, there's many. Even a lot of people have sent me questions in relation to different parts of Suva, who was supplied by Tamavua water treatment plant. You have a solution at hand. You're saying that that would be something that is really needed at this point in time. From the government perspective, from the Minister of Public Works and others, you're saying you have a commitment from them as well?
Definitely. So in terms of the Minister for Public Works and the Minister of Finance, there certainly is a commitment to plan and provide funding that is needed, and that's certainly happening. And I think that is really critical for us to turn the corner. One other thing that is really important, and that is part of this sector strategy, is a financially viable water authority. And there are many armchair experts around the country, but there is one man I definitely respect a lot and listen to, is Rokoseru, the chairman of EFL. He is one of those people who have actually taken a utility that was struggling like we are financially and turned it around. And what he recently said just a few weeks ago was that VAF must follow the EFL template. And there is no other ifs or buts about it. We do have to look at corporatization. We do have to look at our tariff to make us financially viable. Because there are plenty of private sector as well as multilateral development partners willing to help, but they're all asked for that first step, that we do need to finish the corporatization process, and we do need to have a serious conversation about the tariff. Because if you think about it, you could be sitting at home and dreaming of building a brand new house, but if nobody in the house works, that's just a dream. So first thing you need to do is go out and get a job and make sure you got some savings before you can talk about building something. And it's exactly that with us in terms of tariff and corporatization. Without doing that, we can have a $8.5 billion strategy. Public purse can never afford it. So, I totally agree with what Rokoseru says, that that is an essential first step, and that template has to be followed.
Definitely, water rates, water tariffs is an issue. People may say cost of living is already high, and then if the water tariffs go up, it will make life even harder as a basic need of life. What is your comment to that?
So right now, the price of water that the community pays is 15 cents for 1,000 litre. For 1,000 litres, 15 cents, and that is the cheapest water in the Pacific. In terms of affordability, there is a scheme already in place in Water Authority where households with income less than 30,000 get free water. And we are not saying at all to change that. We definitely would like to preserve that in any future discussions. And exactly similar arrangements are in place in case of electricity as well. There are safety nets for low-income households. But those who can afford it, whether it's residential customers, commercial, industrial customers, we do need to have a serious conversation that the tariff needs to reflect the true cost of service provision.
My question also in relation to wastage. Because water is that cheap, do you believe there's a lot of wastage happening as well?
The empirical evidence from all over the world is that the water tariff does reflect in the end user behavior. So there is elasticity in the water usage that is reflected by the price of water. Right now, there is no incentive for people to think about saving because it's so cheap.
What's your message to the people who would have normal running water, and while others who are struggling may not have enough water?
We are working towards delivering water, 24/7 reliable water to all Fijians. That is the dream that we have captured in our Water Sector 2050 strategy. That is what gets us out of bed every morning. And with support from the government, we will be able to deliver that dream.
Definitely it's a temporary issue, but there's a message that WEF always sends out, that people need to store water at least for 3 days. Is that a strategy at the moment based on the situations you're facing?
That is a reality of the vulnerability of our system. And we live in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, susceptible to climate change, lots of, hurricanes and whatnot. So having ability to have 3 days worth of water supply allows us to be able to respond to a burst main or a natural disaster. So that is definitely a resilient strategy. And we as Water Authority do provide subsidy for rainwater tanks. So if you can't afford it, the rainwater tank subsidy is there for you to be able to put a tank at home, and it helps us with the collective resilience of the community.
You had a third-party contractor who damaged one of the main lines, caused a lot of issues for thousands of residents. What is being done to ensure that proper approval processes are taking place, that we do not have incidents like that in the future?
We are discussing that with the FRA as well as the third-party contractor involved. Because the matter is still under discussion on commercial grounds, I really don't want to divulge too much into it, but rest assured, we are making sure the message is taken seriously by anybody working on road corridors and anybody damaging our infrastructure.
Is there a system in place where if any approval is sought from FRA, that people like WEF and EFL are contacted and assessments are done before any digging takes place?
That's correct. There is a system in place which requires us to issue the GIS maps of our pipe network, and that did happen on this occasion. So there are details that we are discussing, but certainly that system is already in place. Yeah.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Wait, where am I?
Oh, you died, bro.
I'm dead? But why?
Buddy, that's what happens when you change your playlist when you're driving.
Crashed.
What? No, this can't be happening. I had so much left to do in life. All I do is stare at my phone because I'm Gen Z and we're all antisocial. And I wish I did so much. But by the way, do you guys have Wi-Fi up here?
This is why you should have listened to F96 Drive. Shouldn't let them play no music.
And you just drive.
No! I can't believe this is happening. It wasn't
When you're
even
done,
my car and I didn't have
Hell is
car
that way,
insurance.
eh?
Wait, what?
Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back.
Breakfast with Budana Penny and Tifa. Good yadras.
It's 7:21 and it's Turned Up Tuesday. Turn up.
Good youngers, let's go. Hey! Hi! We just wanted to take this moment to say a big binakabakalibu
For making us the #1 radio station in Fiji.
Your sport means the world to us.
Thank you for listening in day after day.
I like listening to Breakfast on FM 96. I love all the songs that they play, and FM 96 is my number.
We love FM 96.
FM 96.
Our number one.
One thing that draws me to FM 96 is that the content is relatable. They do play all the music that I love.
part of FM96 is listening to Penny the Pensaris. And they make fun about my forehead because it sings better than they can tell.
And you have made us a part of your daily routine.
And we couldn't be more grateful.
Because you make what we do worth it.
Thank you for making us #1 in Fiji!
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest today is the Water Authority of Fiji CEO, Dr. Amit Chanan. And this is the final segment where we're sitting in the main control room at the Tamavua water treatment plant. Dr. Chanan, you've given examples and said what needs to be done to fix issues for thousands of residents in Tamavua, Khalsa Road, Tadirua, and Samambula. And you have given some time frames. Everything is, of course, I would say at this point in time, out of your control?
Well, we are doing everything we can to make it into our control, but there are some land issues that we're dealing with right now, and we're working with the Ministry of Lands to resolve those.
And I'm sure that the residents would be wondering what they have to do for the time being. Would we have a few months of this before we actually see a solution?
Unfortunately, the long-term solution is that pipeline. Everything else in the middle, in between is at best a Band-Aid. And we're doing everything in terms of process improvement, whatever little intervention we can do on the intake structures, we're doing that as well. But the long-term permanent solution is the pipeline from Savani to Suva.
You had repeated issues which could not be controlled. You had a collapsed pipe, you had a third contractor digging into one of your main trunk lines. You had, on top of that, turbidity issues with a higher amount of rainfall, almost all in a month. Do we expect these things to be this frequent as well?
Vijay, the sad reality of climate change is that we are observing in Waimanu catchment high-intensity rains. We are observing rainfall frequency, the intensity of rainfall going up. So unfortunately, it is becoming more frequent than it has ever been in the last 50 years. That is the sad reality of climate change. In terms of solving the problem, the best we can do is to provide connectivity with Viria, and that pipeline will certainly help us.
With Viria coming online, what has been the good news? All those water woes in the Suva Nusori corridor for that part of the country where people did not have water in their taps at night and water would come back on the next morning. Is that all gone?
Definitely. Suva Nusori system pretty much starts from Vaisari and goes all the way to Tailevu. And while our conversations are largely concentrated around the ridge along Princess Road, and yes, that's where most of the trouble lately has been, there is no noise in the rest of Suva Nusori, and that's thanks to Viria, because the team has worked tirelessly to make sure we bring the Viria project online. And I'm really proud to say that Viria is one of the biggest water projects, not just in Fiji, but in the South Pacific. And we have delivered that project quite successfully. It is resolving lots of those issues east of Rewa River. So Nosori, Wudi, there used to be lots of issues around Wudi and Varalevu areas. We don't hear any issue there at all. People are getting, using their showers in their bathroom for the first time. We're extending the pipelines in the Rewa Delta to smaller villages. So yes, Viria's coming online has certainly helped not only that part of the system, but also backed up the Viola system as well.
No more frustrated residents there. I remember you used to get a lot of calls every morning and every night in relation to issues that they face. So there's some wins there for you, indeed. Big wins, and you have solutions in sight for this one. Of course, with other factors coming in line, you expect some things to happen. Now, everything is dependent on funding as well. Your water strategy equates to, I was reading that, close to $8.5 billion. The taxpayers of the country it's a big ask to get that funded through the government. So how are you planning to achieve your strategy as far as implementation is concerned?
You're absolutely right that the public purse cannot afford the 8.5 billion that is needed. But we are working with all our multilateral funding partners. So in developing the strategy, to give you an example, World Bank and UNDP supported us in getting the strategy up and running. ADB has been part and parcel of the process as well. So all these multilateral banks are interested in supporting us. We worked with private sector, particularly in the wastewater space, and there is desire on the private sector part to engage in PPP type projects. All of those requires us to do our end of the bargain first, which is about finalizing the corporatization and tariff structure. Because people are willing to give you money, or people are willing to enter into PPP agreements, provided they can see there is a tariff structure that will allow us to pay it back over 20, 30, 40 years. If that's missing, it doesn't give a lot of confidence to people. So we have to do that so that we can bring all these partners along and deliver on the projects that are identified in the strategy.
We know that you've had the infrastructure bursting at its seams in some areas, and we've had discussions about a lack of upgrade, lack of upkeep of even pipes in the ground, which is leaking to almost half of the water leaking into the ground. What about other areas of concern, like areas like Nandi, Lautoka, Singatoka?
Indeed, the Water Sector 2050 definitely identifies those areas as key priorities. So particularly the next big challenge for us in terms of water supply and demand balance is going to be, or already is shaping to be, Nandi Lautoka area. So Nandi Lautoka is growing right now faster than the east. There are more developments happening in that part, and particularly development around tourism. So right now, 30% of all the water we supply to Nandi goes to Denarau. Tourists use 10 times more water than normal resident users. So you can imagine, with growth of tourism, which is really critically needed for our economy, we will need to also invest in water supply upstream as well. And we are upgrading our water treatment plant in Ngando, which should start to bring in additional 20 million liters, but we don't have storage capacity in the West now. So one thing that the strategy identifies is a critical need to build additional reservoir, additional dams, because in the West there is really profound dry period between April and November, and we do need more storages in that part critically. The other area you mentioned, Singatoka, so we are looking at that coral coast in particular to work with the proponents of tourism development to develop a private sector involved model to have additional water sources there as well. So that's also identified as a project in the Water Sector 2050. I think that the right model, and I must commend the World Bank, they're working on the Vanuatu Levu tourism project, and in developing that tourism infrastructure, they have not forgotten water. In fact, they are talking about water first. They are looking at our existing capacity to treat water, our existing capacity to treat wastewater, and they're saying it needs to keep pace with the proposal for new tourism. And that's really the right way to go about it.
That was the plan, I remember, back in the 90s, where how will the utility supply go in first before any development is decided upon. And as you said, those discussions have started to happen, and hopefully WEF is always involved in those discussions and does not feel the effects of it after the fact. Issue in relation to your technical expertise. We know in all businesses people are losing people who are migrating or getting jobs overseas. Are you affected by that as well?
We are certainly affected by that quite significantly, and we have lost, I think at last count, we were losing at about 150 staff a year. 10% of our workforce walking out in every 12 months is a significant challenge for any organization. And these are people with, qualifications, 4-5 year experience. They are at their marketable, peak, and they are leaving the organization at that point. So what we have done is we've accepted the fact that in a free market economy, people will move. So we need to focus on the pipeline of talent, pipeline of entry-level, candidates. So we are investing in apprenticeship programs and graduate programs, because that's a level where if we can make more people interested in water and water sector, that'll allow us with not only to meet our immediate needs, but also keep the sector healthy.
Issues, a lot of questions came in relation to Sakoda. Even the opposition party, Fiji First, which was in government before, has released a statement about this government not acting on solutions for the Sakoda residents who have been suffering. What is your comment to them?
I've already shared the challenges of the supplying water to the ridge. I'll just leave it at that, Vijay.
That remains as the main issue in terms of the backup to Viability and a pipeline coming through.
Yes, perhaps the conversations should have had at the time the planning decisions were made to develop that area, but it's too late for that. People have bought houses, they've invested in those properties, and they're expecting us to deliver, and we have projects in the pipeline.
And you have a solution,
indeed,
which will happen based on all the other factors coming in.
Indeed.
We have questions also in relation to how much are you spending on water cartage. It's quite a big ask at the moment, a lot of water trucks going around. People are wondering how you are coping with that.
I think it depends on the nature of the incident and how big an area gets impacted. So the weekend, the Easter long weekend, when we had a significant impact, we had something like 55 trucks, water carts doing rounds in Suva area. So certainly it's not cheap. It does come at a significant cost. But our aim is to build resilience in a way that if one part of the system goes down, we can back it up, so we don't have to rely on water guarding. We used to do a lot of water guarding in the River Delta. The water never really reached those houses through pipeline. We've now stopped doing any water guarding because they are getting water through pipelines. So that's a gain that we've had. But at the same time, up along Sakoda and Khalsa, we have to still ply a lot of water cards. Hopefully, once we back it up through the connection with Savani, we'll drop that as well. But we do closely monitor it.
On a high weekend of major disruptions, how much would you be spending in dollar value?
Look, I don't have that number off the top of my head, sorry.
Now, issues in relation to installation of water tanks. We've seen in some areas, you've reached out and ensured that WEF has put water tanks that are just filled to give them some backups. How is that coming along?
So, sorry,
in some areas you have water tanks that are installed for people.
Yes.
In areas like Cunningham and Khalsa Road, etc. How is that coming along as a backup solution?
So it's important solution to service those areas. So when we had disruptions, I've actually done and gone for a walk and meeting people in Sakoda, Wrong Turn, and they district advisory councillors had asked me to come and have a look at the challenge that we have, because the water carts can't go through some of those narrow streets. So there were suggestions that we put some communal tanks, and we've done that, and we fill those tanks, but invariably, you end up with arguments between community members, why you put it there, why you not put it there. So there is a bit of that goes on as well. So one person's view is it should be in a school, another person's view it should be 100 meters down the road. And our community engagement people are always talking about those issues. But the solution of having a tank in the community during the times of disruption, we are definitely committed to it, and we have those tanks in the community.
So it's just all coming down to, as we end this show, is all coming down to number one, funding, in terms of making sure you have adequate funding. You have your plans all sorted out in terms of execution. Even you have strategies in place to deal with detection, strategies in place to look at the higher elevated areas that are causing problems on this side. And also you're trying to get ahead of the situation in places like Nadi, Lautoka and Singatoka. Based on that, you've got quite a few areas to look at. And we've got the budget coming up from August 1st, a new set of initiatives that will be announced, no doubt. How are you looking at based on your plans in the execution, based on funding as well?
The financial needs of Water Authority are no secrets to anyone. They are very clearly listed in the Water Sector 2050 strategy, and I encourage your viewers to actually download the strategy because it articulates what our current challenges are and what we need to do over the next 3 decades to become a more reliant and more reliable water utility, able to meet people's water and sanitation needs. So Water Sector 2050 strategy is our blueprint. In terms of our budget bids, we are quite hopeful that we'll get a favorable hearing. More important than just the year-to-year budget bids, what we really need is the sector reform, which comes from, in the words of Rokoseru, exactly following the EFL template, finishing the corporatization and having a serious discussion about water tariffs. Because without that, we're just putting Band-Aid on, Band-Aid off. If we do that, it builds us into a viable utility that can then engage with multilateral development partners, engage with private sector, and bring in the money needed to invest.
Dr. Chanan, thank you very much for hosting us here at the Tamavua Water Treatment Plant. And we greatly appreciate your explanations and the issues that you have at hand. Of course, the last time you appeared on the show, you had thousands of residents concerned on the Suva Nusori corridor. That's when Viria was not online, and you had said you have a solution coming. You'll make sure that's fixed. As you said, those people are having no water issues because they have running water in their taps. Now we're looking at a few other problem areas which you have identified with the solution at hand, and we believe that based on your plans and the 2050 strategy plan that has been requested, and it's also online which you can read as well, we hope that there's good news ahead for the thousands of residents who are affected by water disruptions. But on Straight Talk also, we'd like to say that we'll be talking to other agencies and ministries in terms of environmental factors that are playing a big part in terms of water infrastructure, in terms of leak detection and other issues where the government can ensure that more projects are funded so that WEF can look at those issues and the bigger discussions on water tariffs, etc. Before we finish off, your comments to the people watching out there.
I just request once again from the people, particularly in the Tamavua system, their patience, and I do apologize for the frequent disruption they face since the Easter time. We are working very hard to make sure that it becomes a thing of the past. Naka.
And that's your show for tonight. Until next week, have a great evening.